Hope everybody's enjoying their Chol Hamoed and the Pesach. There's no question this is definitely a different Pesach than we're accustomed to. Nevertheless, we still have the same mitzvahs and our service to Hashem has not changed. On Shabbos, as Pesach Shabbos and Chol Hamoed, the Haftorah was taken from Sefer Yechezkel, the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, which deals with the prophecy of the dry bones, as many refer to it, in the valley of Dura, in which the Yechezkel was instructed by God to look and see all of the absolute dried bones that lie in death and almost decay. Hashem says to Yechezkel, can they live? Yechezkel says, Hashem, only you know. And then miraculously Hashem tells Yechezkel that he should prophesy in the name of Hashem that indeed life should come to these dry bones. And they do. The bones come together. They form sinews. They develop flesh upon them and skin. And yet there's still no life until Hashem instructs Yechezkel to command the wind that it should blow with the will of God into the nostrils of these corpses, and they would be resurrected and revived. Indeed, in the Talmud and the tractate Masechta Sanhedrin, there's a discussion if this actually took place or if it was just a vision. And the Gemara says that one of the Tanoim states this was an actual resurrection and that he, the one who was speaking in the Talmud, is a descendant of one of those who was resurrected. It's a very inspiring and beautiful Haftorah. The question is, what does this have to do with Pesach? Why is it a Pesach? Pesach Shabbos Chol Hamoed. Where in Pesach do we have any element of resurrection of the dead? In the Haggadah, it brings the verses in which it states that God rescued Klal Yisrael, and we came to the sea, the splitting of the sea, and as we know, all of the miracles that took place at the splitting of the sea, we say then Dayenu, and it quotes the verses from Parshas B'Shalach, in which it states, Oz Yoshia Moshe u'vnei Yisrael es hashira zeis laHashem. At that moment, Moshe and Klal Yisrael would sing the Shira. Shira, Rav Shamshon Alfar Hirsch tells us, is not just a song, but it is the spiritual perception of the divine presence as expressed through song. And Klal Yisrael came to this perception, and they sang the Oz Yoshia Moshe, which has become part of our daily service. Rashi comments, why is the word Yashir future tense? It should say, Oz Shar Moshe Uvenei Yisrael. At that point, Moshe and the children of Israel sang. Yashir means they will sing. At that point, Moshe and Bnei Yisrael will sing. Rashi comments, one of his answers is that from here we see a reference to Tchias HaMesim. From here we see that the Torah is alluding to the fact and the point in time when God will resurrect the dead and Moshe and the children of Israel will again sing the Shira. The question is here too, why is the Torah referring to the resurrection of the dead at this point? There are other places in the Torah, the Talmud tells us, which allude to the resurrection of the dead. Why over here? And what does this have to do with Pesach? What is it exactly that transpired on Pesach that the Torah should reveal to us this concept which is fundamental in Jewish belief? One of our 13 principles of our faith is there will be a Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead. We say in our prayers every day. The second of our brachas that we say in Shmoneh Esrei is Mechaye HaMesim, God will resurrect the dead. Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed, God supports the living with kindness. Mechaye Mesim Berachimim Rabim, and he will resurrect the dead with great mercy. What does this have to do with Pesach as opposed to any other Yontif or any other Shabbos or day in our sacred calendar? Commentaries tell us, as we know, that Klal Yisrael was immersed in idolatry in Egypt. They had fallen to the 49th level of impurity, 50th being the point of no return. Klal Yisrael had lost all knowledge and sensitivity of the sanctity of the Jewish soul. We had become exposed to the Egyptian culture, and many identified with this culture. As a matter of fact, when we came to the splitting of the sea, the guardian angel of Egypt said before God, "Why are you about to drown the Egyptians?" Because they worshipped the idols, they were engaged in idolatry. Halolu avdu avodah zarah v'halolu. The Egyptians worshipped idolatry, and so did the Jews. God said, yes, but the Jews didn't do it of their own volition. It was imposed upon them. It was planted within them by Paro and the Egyptians. But nevertheless, we see that Klal Yisrael had fallen to such a point, whether it was something they had chosen or as something that was cast upon them. Nevertheless, they found themselves in the depths of the impurity and the immorality of the Egyptian culture. And we can refer to them as being spiritually comatose. Klal Yisrael was at their last breath. We know that even after 8 plagues in which the hand of God was revealed to humanity, and we saw that God was the creator, the one in control of life and death, the heavens, the earth, all the plagues, the makais, and nevertheless we're told the chamushim olu b'nei Yisrael, which they say 20% of Klal Yisrael left Egypt. What happened to the other 80%? After all the wonders and miracles at hand of God, they didn't want to leave. They were comfortable in Egypt. They were accustomed to this culture. And they died, they perished in the plague of darkness when the Egyptians could not see nor even sense their disappearance. Such was the depravity that permeated and pervaded the mental state of Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael was in the last throes of life. And yet, we find that God took us out because even with the last throes of life, even after death, there still remains a spark from which one can be resurrected. And we came to the Sea of Reeds. God divided the waters. We saw the outstretched hand of God, his strong hand. And it says, Vayar ha'am, Vayiru ha'am es Hashem. Klal Yisrael saw the hand of God. We were filled with an awe of God. Vayaminu ba'Hashem u'v'Moshe avdei. And we attained a level of true, pure, perfect faith in God and Moshe as his servant. Us, then, as the Orach Chaim explains, then at that point, that Klal Yisrael was resurrected, that Klal Yisrael achieved the incredible level of awe of God, belief in God. Then we were able to sing this shira, this spiritual perception with Moshe Rabbeinu. The men sang with Moshe, the women sang with Miriam. All of Klal Yisrael was able to ascend to the loftiest and the greatest heights of spiritual perception. Has there ever been a resurrection of the dead as potent and magnificent as what took place at that point? That's why it says Yoshir. That's why we see from the Shira at the Yam Suf, by the splitting of the sea, we see that the Torah is indeed alluding to and reminding us of a resurrection of the dead. And that's why we have this Haftorah I would like to suggest. The Haftorah is telling us that God is telling the prophet Yechezkel, there will be another occasion in which Klal Yisrael will be like dried, lifeless, decaying, decomposing bones with nothing. They're about to crumble and turn into ash. And yet there still remains a spark within even the remains of Klal Yisrael. For the holy soul is eternal. And God knows that whatever transgressions we did, they were brought upon us, they cascaded upon us. And it was not of our own doing, on our own volition. And there will once again be a resurrection of the dead, physically and spiritually. We find ourselves today in which we see a generation which knows not of their own magnificent heritage, the beauty of our mitzvahs, the glory and sanctity of our Torah, our ability to bond as God's chosen people, his holy priestly nation. They know nothing of this. They scoff, they scorn, they laugh, they ridicule, they deride. Here again we see a spiritual coma, almost on the verge of death, 49 levels of impurity. And God says to us, be aware, that spark of holiness is still there. There shall be a resurrection amongst all of Klal Yisrael, those who cling to God's Torah and mitzvahs, and those who find themselves so distant from his divine word. There will come a point when we open our eyes and we recognize, as we say in Rosh Hashanah, V'yedu kol pa'ul ki ato pa'altai, all that God has made will know that he made us. V'yovin kol yotzer, everything that was fashioned will understand ki ato yetzartai. God, you are the one who fashioned us. You're in control. One little virus, look what it does to the whole world, our economy, our well-being, our mental state. Look what it does to families, in addition to the horrific death and tragedies that have befallen so many. Klal Yisrael will realize that you have made us, you have fashioned us. And everyone that has a soul within his nostrils will say, Hashem is the Melech, God is the King, Umalchusai, and his kingdom, Ba'koil Meshala, will reign within each and every one of us. Especially as we come on the last day of Yontif to Yizkor, to remember. Let us remember that it's not just those who are gone, it is those who are awaiting this resurrection of the dead. May we all await the spiritual resurrection, the physical resurrection. May we enjoy God's blessings, his Yontif, his Shabbos, and Lashana Haba next year, B'Yerushalayim. A good Yontif.